start that transition. So that is our plan right now. It has been, from what I can gather, and again, I'm like, what, 3 weeks into working at Keller Williams after being at other companies here in town. So from what I can gather, we had some requirements here in Arizona that were different than other states that Command is used in for the compliance piece of it. So Lisa had to work with them to get some things put in place so that it would work for Arizona and what Arizona requires of us from compliance. So that sounds like that's just about done. And so August 1st, and then we will go for about 90 days and give everybody 90 days to kind of get everything moved over and start using it and go through that process, do some trainings during that time and learn. So it's really good if you haven't jumped into Command at all. I would suggest trying it. Like yesterday, I got in there and I just entered my husband as a contact because I don't work with clients anymore. But I just wanted to see what that process was like. And then I'm going to start a transaction and a test transaction and just kind of, and so what I found out is I had to sign up for the DocuSign link to be able to use the DocuSign part of it. So there is some prep work you can do even if you're not using Command. Anybody here using it at all?
I'm using it for the monthly neighborhood snapshots.
Okay. So using
it's sort of accurate. It's getting better as time goes on, but not 100% accurate.
Yeah, I think that that's what will happen too, is that as they dial things in and they get feedback, one of the things I've really noticed that I like about Keller Williams is they're very responsive to what they hear from agents, you know, and they do those labs and they do that different stuff where they try and make that as robust as possible. So thankfully, it's an ongoing process. Yeah. So, so again, Robin, if you need a hand with that, just drag your laptop in here one day, let me know you're coming and we'll figure that one out.
Is anybody on this call using the mobile app? That has changed. It used to be very different and easy to use. I'm sort of having a challenge with that a little bit.
Oh, with the mobile app for your clients to search?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
It used to be easier to search, I think. I'm not using it as often anymore.
Okay, I didn't know what the old version is and I've never really played with the new one again because I don't work with clients. Heather is our tech person now. She's like, you know, definitely that's her role. So she might be able to help you with any issues that you're having with that. And just reach out to her.
With it. It doesn't work so well as far as sending to clients. It's not branded as well, it seems. And it's also hard for them to follow, like open houses and stuff. I think they're working on that too. I think they're getting a lot of questions regarding it. So,
well, that's good.
They've had a new release. I'm sorry, Wendy.
No, go for it, Teresa.
Yeah, I had a new release within the past just a few weeks. So you may want to download it again, and it should be marketed right to you. You should have a marketing code. The code's the same as it used to be, but the platform has been updated and my clients aren't having any problems. And I put myself in as a client just to be able to go in and play with it and just see what the client would see. So that way you can set up your own little passcode and everything as if you're a client. Because I know I have a personal email plus the Keller Williams email. So I put in my personal email and that way I can just log in as if I'm my own client and I get that feel and play with it. And that way you can address concern your client may have because you already know. And then you can actually go in and go, okay, let's work through this together. I'm going to be a client also, and let's see what issues you're having. That might help.
That's a good idea.
But I get notifications through Kelly if someone's on my app. And when they log in, I get an email that so-and-so logged into your app. Here's the phone number and their email.
So you're getting a lot of people to log into the app?
I'm getting there, yeah. So I'm actually also you have a link that you can email people and say, hey, and it gives a really cool video about what the link, what the app is. And then it gives two different, they can download it as an Apple or an Android. They'll say, click which one you are, and then they give their phone number, and I'm having more success with that. I believe that way they can look at it versus getting a text message with the link. So
Okay.
doing both, but it seems like the emails are working better.
Oh, good. Perfect.
And
Thanks.
so what you're saying is you can send an email to your, to people that you have their email address, asking them to download the app, or you can send them a text message that gets them to download the app, but you're
Yes.
having more success with the email. People seem to be having.
Yeah, because what I'm doing is if I get a Facebook lead and then I'm following up with an email and saying, hey, thanks a lot for checking out my Facebook ad. And as a thank you, here's my free Keller Williams phone app to make your home search even easier.
Nice.
Oh, that's a
I
great
really-
idea.
Yeah, and I just say, here's a video, and the video is really great. It explains, how to use it. So they get to look at the video showing everything about it before they even download it. So, which is
Oh,
nice.
good. Are you doing a lot of Facebook ads? Is that being successful for you?
Yeah, I'm getting several leads a day, so it's is nice. And sometimes over the weekend, I get bombarded. On Monday morning, I'm like, wow, I got 14
Really?
14 leads in one day. So, and I'm
Wow. Is it on
still-
listings is it on listings or just neighborhoods, or what is
Yes,
the ad that
it's
you
been
posted?
both. It's been both. I did a few ads through the command, and I have got a couple buyers through that. I did a little cartoon thing about renting versus buying, and that went pretty well. I've got a buyer right now. He's getting approved for a loan so that we can narrow it down on what he's looking for. He's meeting with my lender today, and that was just off of that one Facebook ad. So
Wow, that's fantastic. Good.
And what would you say, Teresa, you have invested in Facebook ads so far?
well, I took advantage of what Keller Williams was doing for us. I put in, it was like $150, I think, for Facebook ads, and then they reimbursed me or didn't charge us for the monthly. So
Okay.
but if I get one buyer, it's more than
Worth
paying
it.
for it.
Yeah. Sounds like it's been working. I've heard some other success stories around it here around the office. So I think if I was still a working agent, I would be checking that one out of all the ways we invest marketing dollars.
I have a lot of the down the
Right
line.
there. I'm just going to log off for a second. I apologize.
Okay.
Bye.
I
1 minute.
have a lot of down the line leads. So working with people who needs to build up their credit a little bit. I've helped them find rentals for about a year, and then they're going to, and I'll be working with them, staying in touch with them because they do want to buy. They're just could not get their credit score up above 640. So.
All right. Hey, I just got some information from a lender, and I can't say who because it's not somebody we're connected with, but a lender who was telling me that they dropped their score to 580 for government-backed loans. So if it's been a while since they tried to qualify, it might be a good idea to have them try that again if they were looking. Yeah, because I was surprised. Because apparently when we went through the COVID thing, that number went up for what your credit score had to be, and now it's coming back down again. So might be worth checking out. So I see that, I see Dan over there, but he's like, hiding behind his very professional photo over there. But I have seen Teresa and Robin both on different things, and I just would like to meet you. So tell me about Teresa, and then we'll get to Robin. Tell me how long have you been in real estate? What's this like for you? Tell me, what should I know about Teresa?
Oh, well, it's very new. I have a business background and purchasing and marketing and inventory control, years of doing stuff like that. I look for something that I could work from home to help my husband. I still edit all his reports. He's an engineer, and he was born actually in Croatia, so he still hasn't got the hang of our grammar, the withs and thus that they do not have there. So I have to watch for little things like that for him, and I've been doing that for him for 22 years. So I needed something more flexible, and it works out wonderful. I've got we have a 4-bedroom home. He's got his own office in one room. I have my office in another. We have our bedroom. We still have one guest room that my grand's currently buying for the summer. I got my license in October, the end of October. Immediately started work for Williams, and they have been so encouraging. I've learned a lot. I have never been in real estate, so this is all very new to me. I really appreciate Dan. Don't know if he can hear, but he is an inspiration, and he really helps us a lot every single day.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful to hear. Well, it's so nice to meet you and get to know a little bit more about you. So, hi.
Hi, Wendy. Good to meet you. Welcome aboard.
Thanks. Robin, tell me about Robin.
So Robin moved to Arizona from New Hampshire in 2010.
Wait a minute. What part of New Hampshire?
The southwest corner, Keene.
Oh, okay. I lived in Rochester for like 8 years.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
My daughter worked in Rochester.
Okay. So yeah. All right. So you moved here from New Hampshire in
2010 when the economy tanked because I was a land surveyor and the engineering company I worked for laid off a bunch of us. So I turned it into a positive, and Mom and Dad just had gotten a condo in Ventana Canyon. And I decided to come out and be the caretaker, go back to school, change careers. I went to Pima Community College for hotel restaurant management and worked at Skyline Country Club and then the Ritz-Carlton. But I never knew that it was essentially slave labor. It was just such a low-paying job. And you had to work all these banquets at night to try and make enough money, and it was hard. So I ended up getting a job for Pima County. I've been there 6 years. I work full-time for Pima County now in development services. I'm the addressing official, so I name streets and issue addresses and review all the subdivision plans, and I'm the subdivision coordinator. So I work with all the developers and release the lots once their site construction is complete so that they can sell the lots. So Pima County actually helped me get my real estate license. And I joined Keller Williams and got my license at the same time that Teresa did, the end of October.
Oh, okay.
So
what's it been like for you?
It's certainly been a learning process. I've learned so much, and I really feel so much better that I became part of this PC group with Dan. He's like this huge resource and has given me the confidence to know what I'm doing. Just in the transaction, there's so much, I find, I don't like not being in control of all the pieces and waiting for the other people, and they didn't sign the form and I sent it 3 hours ago, and I have to adjust my mindset to that. And also just like, I'm so nervous about this sale I have under contract right now, because my buyers are being like, oh, we're gonna cancel if she's not willing to help us with what we asked on the Binzer, and just trying to talk to everyone. And the seller, she's crazy and she keeps calling me, and she called all upset yesterday, and I try to talk to her and get everyone's like, we really want to win-win and help everyone. And I think we're gonna get there, but oh my goodness.
So the seller is calling you, the buyer's agent?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Did we do a redirect back to her seller, her agent? Because that's where we need to redirect her.
So I have, and the reason she got my phone number in the first place was on the MLS listing, you had to call her for permission to show.
Oh, okay.
So she could remove the pets. And she's been calling me ever since. And I told Jeff, and I've tried to be very careful, but she seems to like really like me, and it's crazy.
Yeah, some people don't understand where the lanes are and where the lines are in all of this. Yeah, so you have to do a little redirecting. I get you about the whole part about like you have to rely on other people to meet the timelines and do the things that they're supposed to do. I think on a quick count one time, I said on an average deal, there's about 15 different people involved. You know, if you've got 2 buyers, 2 sellers, a home inspector, a termite inspector, an appraiser, a loan officer, you know, it goes on. And all of these people, your job is sort of like to be the ringmaster of that entire circus. And sometimes the animals just don't cooperate, and they don't hit their marks, and they don't do what they're supposed to do. So yeah, and it's like, come on, you're making me look bad, people. Let's get on the stick here and do what we're supposed to do. So good for you for being aware of that part of you that gets frustrated by that, and then just keep working through it and keep doing that. So hi, Dan, I see that face. Looks like you're working on something there while you're on the call with us. They've been talking really nice things about you.
I pay them well. I do.
Good. Okay, good.
My dog was chewing on my thumb.
Well, you know, it looks like a really small group here today, and I just wanted to, I thought of a couple of different things that have come up this week. I kind of bring you the latest and greatest. I make notes as people call me and ask me questions, and very brief notes most of the time. And one of the things that came up this week was a newer agent went and helped somebody buy a piece of land. And Dan, what's your feeling on a brand new agent or an agent who's been doing this and has never done land before when they step out to help somebody buy a piece of land?
I think it's 100% imperative that they read over the land purchase contract and go through it. I was a new agent. I had done 3 deals, if I remember right. No, my 3rd deal ever was a land contract.
Mm-hmm.
So again, brand new agent, not knowing what I did, just read the purchase contract and kind of just sailed it from there. I learned land and I learned seller carryback in the same deal.
Okay, that's a lot.
As a buyer's agent. So it's for me, I will allow newer agents to do a land contract without being completely paired, because I think that once you read the contract, you have an understanding, and you have a mentor overlooking it, but it's not necessarily like a short sale where I say you have to hand it over and learn, like short sale, commercial, REO, those things. I think land is enough, you know, it's precarious, but it's cleanly defined in the contract if you know the nuances. As long as that's done. The fact that most new agents don't even know that there's a separate form for a land contract.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up, that there is a separate purchase contract for the land contract. Vacant land has its own SPDS. It has its own SPUDs that you should be receiving from the seller. And the one that tripped us up this week was land has a vacant land BINSR. There's a BINSR for land. And the person was like, well, what could they ask for us to repair on a piece of dirt? And I'm like, well, there's lots of things. Just talking to an agent today about how they asked on a BINSR, a vacant land BINSR, for the easement to be staked. They wanted the easement on the property to be staked. You might be asking for something, maybe there's debris on the piece of property that you want removed before you close. So there is a vacant lot land BINSR that you need to use during that transaction. So you want to make sure that you are aware of that. They were not. It closed and it hadn't been done. So there was nothing to be done other than for me to write a note in the file that says, you know, moving forward, please make sure you have the vacant lot BINSR so that it can show that we were supervising that transaction. But yeah, those are the things to know the nuances of it. And as you can see, Dan got stuck with doing a seller carryback at the same time. So I had an agent yesterday ask me, you know, brand new agent here. I think my client wants to buy 5 acres of land, blah, 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 blah. And I said, then take that contract out and read it. The first time you do a land contract is not when their client's sitting across the table for you or sitting at their home waiting for you to send it over through email. That's not the time for you to become familiar with it. Same thing with the seller carryback financing addendums. Taking a look at those and understanding what those are. Those carryback, seller financing carryback addendums came out of the 2010 Frank Dodd Act, which came out of the whole mortgage meltdown in 2008. And what they found is that they had too many people doing seller financing. People were actually acting like mortgage companies without being licensed mortgage companies because they were doing seller financing all over the place. So they put some rules in place that said, hey, you can't do that many of them. There has to be, because if you do, then you're a bank and you're a lender, and then you've got to go get your lending license, and they changed up those kinds of rules. So the first time you're going to do one, make sure you've taken that out before you're sitting down with the client to take a look at them.
I think it's important to do that to all the forms, period.
Yes.
I challenged the PC agents, and just on the normal purchase contract that I put it out there, and I haven't received either. You were just saying the contract timelines. I got Robbins. The contract timeline. So what I had them do is go through the contract. This, now I know they're reading it, and they're looking for anything that's date specific or some kind of date coded cue, like day 3, day 5, day 10, and write them down in a chronological timeline, so you know when and what needs to be at certain points. And I'm getting a lot of ahas. I'm getting a lot of, oh, I didn't know that. And it's just right there in the contract. So before you do any kind of deal, even your new listing, go write that down. The listings have timelines too. So it's important, like Wendy was saying, any documentation that's a newer deal or something, you should know the forms inside and out.
And I would say that, you know, as I started in real estate in 2009, you know, and wrote my first contract about 4 or 5 months later in 2010. I was one of those agents. It took me almost 5 months to do that first deal. You know, I wrote that one, but since in the 11 years since, the contract is something I'm always looking at, always reviewing, always making sure I give a refresher. So it's not a bad idea to pull out a document that you haven't used before and pull it out. I had an agent who has been in this business for 20 years say to me, I didn't realize the final walkthrough could be used as a cure notice. And I was like, what? And section 2 on a final walkthrough is a cure notice on the final walkthrough. So reading that through and just knowing what you're doing with that is important. So I sort of, you can almost set up a study for yourself, saying every week I'm going to take a look at 1 or 2 documents or sections in a document, reread them. Because I got to tell you, if I remember correctly, my 6-hour broker, the contract class you take when you get your license, yeah, it kind of went in one ear and out the other. So, because it was just way too much information for me as a brand new person to take in. So, hey, Lois, you're back.
Yes, I am.
Hi. Hey, while you were gone, I had the other ladies introduce themselves to me and tell me a little bit about themselves and how long they've been, you know, doing this. And there's Dan's dog. Oh, that's adorable.
This is my mom's dog. My dog is much bigger and less friendly.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Chewy, they just came over to the house. I'm watching my nephew for a few hours. So, and
so somebody
right
wants
now
to.
I've got my. His name is Chewy. He's the most friendly social dog you'll
Oh,
ever see.
he's so cute.
Oh, hi, Chewy.
Hi, Chewy.
He's gonna try to come closer now.
Yeah.
He probably watches television.
Oh,
too.
Chewy. Oh, that's adorable.
This is my
Very
dog.
cute.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
He's like, I want attention.
Yeah. So I found out that I'm from New York, like Wendy. I didn't find out that I'm from New York, but I found out that Wendy's from New York.
Yes.
So it was
originally.
nice to meet her.
That's right, when we
and-
talked on the phone that day, yes.
Yes, and that all worked out fine, by the way, and nothing was changed. So thank you for your expertise. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was licensed in New York for about 20 years. My last stretch was with Keller Williams for 10 years in the Hudson Valley. And then I came here and I decided to get a full-time job doing sales because we wanted to have the health benefits, and everybody said to me, we had to get licensed again to be a realtor here in Arizona. So I was working and I was going to the class at night, and then I got licensed here. So everybody was like, you've been a realtor for so long, like you should go back into real estate. So
And how's it working out, selling real estate in Arizona?
it's very different. You close quicker. There's no attorneys, which is nice. And in New York, the realtors are non-essential, so they're not even able to go into houses right now. It's a very different market.
Yeah, they're still on lockdown there. Still having to get out and do business. Yeah, so not easy for them. And a little bit different about how you approach the contract as a realtor in New York. because of the attorney involvement in the contract.
Right. Well, you don't even see the contract in New York. The attorney really has the final say, and a lot of times they make things a lot harder to get done because they like to show their power. So
Yeah. Well, you're
it
billing by
slows
the
things
hour.
down.
Yeah.
Slows down things a lot. It takes usually like 45 to 60 days to close in New York, at
Mhm.
least.
I remember
So
that.
that's
I
90.
remember, buying a home in New York and having to go through that process. But the difference is that also in those states, you usually all go to the closing table together. You're sitting sometimes across from the other party, and sometimes they actually push the keys across the table to you. That was my experience there.
Yes.
So that's a good thing to remember when we're dealing with people who come from states where real estate might be practiced like that, that may be what they're used to. So when you talk about the close of escrow date, or you talk about going to go get signing, they think when they sign that that's the day they're going to get their keys. And they need help understanding that that usually is a day to 3 days later. But if they've come from a state like I did I lived in New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Maine, and New Hampshire, they are, those states, you oftentimes had the keys the day you signed the paperwork, even if there was a loan involved. So we need to always be cognizant of that part of the contract and how people are interpreting. Because when we say signing, it's very, very different here. And it's, we do have sometimes where it table funds and where it all goes through right there and then and there, but that's not the norm here. The norm is, bye, Dan. See you. He's leaving us. I think he has to take the dogs for a walk or something. Yeah. So we were just talking while you were gone, Lois, just about vacant land and reminding everybody that there's BINSRs and SPUDs that are very specific. Also, another one that came up for me this week is income, residential income. If there's been, if there's more than one unit on there, there's a residential income addendum when you make your offer that needs to go over with it. And then there's a residential income SPUDs that they have to give you about that. So you want to make sure that you're getting those things and you're sending those things over with your transaction. So anything come up for any of you ladies this week that I can answer a question or we can discuss and kind of talk through? Or has it all been smooth like butter?
I have a question.
Sure.
So just an hour ago, I got the appraisal back from Keller Mortgage. So it appraised right at the contract price.
Great.
So what do I do with that information now? Is that just an email to the seller's agent?
I personally like emails because I like to document everything that I do in a transaction. So I really like to send an email, and that email is very vague. It says, hey, appraisal came in at value. That's all. Or the appraisal is good. We never give out that number. It's not their business. It's not their appraisal. They just need to know that we're moving forward. That's all that they need to know. So I'd put that in an email to them. They may have already been notified. I have seen a trend lately for the lender to notify the buyer's agent and the seller, but just check in with them and let them know that you've got it back and everything came out fine. So just a precautionary tale about appraisals. I had a newer agent, I think it was her first deal. Appraisal came in about $5,000 higher. And she called up the seller's agent and said, our appraisal came in, this was on a manufactured home. It came in at $95,000 and they were under contract for $90,000. It came in at $95,000 and gives the agent that information. Well, don't you know that by the next day, the seller was coming back and saying, hey, you know that those tie downs that we promised we were going to do, because on a manufactured home, there has to be tie downs. We're not going to do them unless you pay us more money for the property. And they were willing to let the deal blow up over that because they now found out their property was worth $5,000 more. And who gave them that information, So price went up to 92 and the buyer was okay with that. But that $2,000 in my mind should have come out of the buyer's agent's pocket. They just cost them an additional $2,000 by not. So that's not information we share. We only share that information when it comes in low. When it comes in below, we have to tell them, where we're at with it.
So in my case, I just wonder if it wouldn't help in the negotiations because we haven't got the seller's response from the Binzer yet. And so original listing price was 274 and my buyer's highest and best was 265. And she came down and accepted it. And now the appraisal is at 265. So it wouldn't necessarily have appraised at 274.
So you're thinking if we're still, is your Binzer from your buyers over with the seller right now for them
Yes.
to be, okay. So you're thinking this information, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if you said to them, yeah, it came in right at the price, that they would understand that, you know, playing hardball with you on a Binzer and the deal falling apart is not going to mean they can put the house back on the market for a higher price. Is that what you're thinking?
That's what I was thinking.
What do you think, Teresa and Lois?
I don't know if it should really make a difference. I think that they still accepted the offer and it is what it is. So they should stand behind the house regardless of the appraisal amount, I would think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Teresa, any thoughts?
Well, it came back right at your scenario where it was above or her scenario where it came at.
Mm-hmm.
At.
Okay.
So that,
Yeah. Then to me, I would just say the appraisal was finished and we're ready to move forward. I wouldn't just, you know, even disclose if it was under or over. Just if it was under, of course, and that issue. So they're going to know that it appraised enough to go through, but without disclosing anything else.
A lot of times sellers think that they have a gold mine and that they've given their house away since they brought it down 15,000. So they don't want to do any of the repairs because they already went down. But the bottom line is you can use that in your toolbox and just say, you know, at the end, you know, it appraised for what we bought it for. So if you have to. But.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that you can make a judgment call if you see how the process is going. Have you got indication from the seller's agent that they are not open to doing repairs? Has it been like that?
So the seller has said that she doesn't want to do any repairs. And I mean, and yesterday she called me and she was all upset and I came down all this money and now you're asking me to do repairs. And so what we asked is for the roof to be coated and I gave an estimate of $1,400. But then before I sent the Binzer, I spoke with the seller's agent and I said that my buyer is willing to compromise and do the work himself. And if she could, you know, contribute for the materials or, you know, if she could meet us halfway, they'd be happy. But my buyer, they're like threatening to cancel if she won't do anything. And so I want it to be win-win. And I don't feel like we're asking for something unreasonable, but if she would give them a concession of 700, you know, half the cost, then the buyer would be able to do it.
Yeah, I think that in this particular case, you might be able to say when you give them the news about the appraisal came in at value. Okay. And that tells them it is on that number. And there's, you know, you can give them, because that is the truth. I, you know, never would tell them it came in over if it had come in over, but in this case, state it that way. It came in at value. And yeah, and that can give them if there's a smart person on the other end, they understand what you're saying to them. And does your buyer have room to take a credit? Does your buyer have any closing costs already built into this transaction?
No.
Okay, so when I say is there room, in other words, you know, if you had 3% in closing costs built into this transaction, your buyer may not have had any more room to take any more credit and would have left money on the table. So we always want to be watching that when we're kind of negotiating credits after the contract, that there's actually room for those credits.
Yeah, I've had a lot of sellers say, I'm not paying anything towards repairs. I went down enough. And then when they get the Binzer, they end up paying the money for repairs if they want the deal to go through.
Well,
Or
because
who knows what the next Binzer will look like? It could be worse.
right,
So-
it could be, and they're going to have, if you've come up with something that's wrong with the house, they're going to have to disclose that to their next buyer. They're not going to be able to hide that fact. So they're going to have to deal with it at some point down the road. Teresa?
I was going to ask Robin that, did the home inspector find that the roof needs to be recoated? Is this a structural thing, or is it a cosmetic thing that the buyers are asking for?
So it's a maintenance thing. So the home inspector found it, and then I went and had a roofer go look at it. It was the whole deck of the roof was replaced in 2017, but it hasn't been touched since then. So it's the coating from the sun is peeled up and bubbling, and it needs more coating.
Okay, so it's not leaking though, or any signs of that?
No.
And
Well,
what
clearly, I
category
think-
did what category did the home inspector put it as?
I'd have to look.
That was a trick question.
Not safety. So it
A lot of
probably
home
is
inspectors
cosmetic then?
do things- A lot of home inspectors just do things on appearance, they suggest that things get done, but it's not required or it's not really necessary. There's a lot of home inspectors that do a lot of things that I wouldn't necessarily do, so I don't use them if I can help it because they can ruin a deal if they ask for too much. Sometimes it's perceived as being an issue, which really isn't an issue, so.
That was kind of point because I had one deal in December after a license, and the home inspector I used, let's just say, was very, very, very thorough, but he had a huge list. I mean, the outlet cover had a small hairline crack type of thing. So I had to go through with my first time home buyers, and they were like, oh my God, and when it all was said and done, there was actually nothing wrong with the house, but I think one small roof tile was loose. That was, at first it was a shock and awe. I thought they were going to pass out on me, but when you really go through it and see what is it and how is it documented? Is it structural? Is it safety? Just is it something critical, or is it cosmetic?
Yes.
So that's kind of what my point was. And it would be horrible to lose this deal over something that is not structural. It's not hurting the structure, and it's not leaking. Has it ever leaked? And it might be something, like you said, maintenance that they can take care of later if they really want to buy the house. So that was my point.
And I've tried that line of talk with them, and I did get them to agree that everything on the home inspection was little things that they can work on and take care of themselves. But the one issue I couldn't get them to let go of was that the roof needs coating, and to maintain the flat roof in good condition, it needs this.
Mhm.
But it's not structural. But my buyers, they're like so stubborn that over the $700, like they're willing, it's $1,400 estimate, they're willing to go to $700, but they want something, or they want to cancel. And I said, but you've already paid for your inspections, the appraisal. It doesn't make
Did you
any
do
sense.
anything
So
about
then
it? Did
I
you
want to
say-
make the deal. Do I have to pay $700?
No.
Did
Did you have to say
explain to them
anything
that they-
about, did you say something about the 700 already, or did you submit the Binzer for the whole 1,400 estimate that you received?
I submitted the Binzer for the $1,400 estimate, but I talked to the seller's agent on the phone and explained that we're willing to compromise.
Good. Conversation, opening the door to have conversation is so much better, because then just writing back their response and then you're going, oh, I wish we had had conversation, is always a good thing. Opening up those lines of communication so that when that response comes back to you, it can be something you work with. You know, there's a couple of things I don't understand with this house. If that whole roof was done in 2017, that's only 3 years ago. That's a pretty quick decaying of that roofing material. I think it should have probably lasted a few years longer, but it may speak to when the roof was replaced. Maybe they didn't put on as many coats as whatever. I'm not a roofer, so I'm just speaking BS right now because I'm not a roofer. But you know, they may have. What?
That's a good point, Wendy. You hit on something, because most roof coaters give a 5-year warranty.
Yeah, so it's kind of unusual that 3 years later, that's already showing some signs of wear, which then I would go, you know, I don't think it's too much to ask for something. Yeah, I know that we always point you towards safety and structural, but there are sometimes things that just matter. And sometimes when we're talking about people moving into a house and having to do those kinds of sort of what we would call deferred maintenance right away is not the best time financially for them to be doing that sort of thing. I mean, that's why we recommend home warranties, so that they don't get hit with having to replace a refrigerator or something right away, right? So, you know, I mean, a switch cover, 29 cents at Home Depot, you know, I can buy a package of them for I don't know what, those kinds of things. It's a used house, you know, expect there's some wear and tear. And if you're not okay with that, then maybe we should be looking at new construction. But you know, but I don't know. I kind of am torn on this one, because it's like, wow, that roof's only 3 years old. It should look pretty good still.
Maybe you could say something to find out if there's a home warranty on the roof. You know, ask her who did the roof and get them back to look at it. They should stand behind the roof if it's a short time.
That's true.
I'm gonna call the people who did the work on the roof. So I haven't heard what that result was, but I encouraged her that was a good idea.
That's an excellent idea. Great job. A great idea, Lois, because they may have warranted that work.
Right.
And she might have a warranty on that.
And the agent maybe doesn't even know, you know, she should look into it.
Yeah.
That
I
would
think
be
we've
great.
all had clients who don't know how old their roof is, whether it's warranted or not, or any of that stuff, you know. And then when they finally dig out the paperwork, if they can find it, they go, oh, wait a minute. That guy said he would fix this if anything happens in the first 5
Right.
minutes. Let me get him out here, you know, that kind of thing. So
Yes.
always,
That might be your solution, Robin.
That would be great.
yeah.
Then you'll have a win-win.
Yeah. Like I said, though, you know, and I'm sure Dan has said this to you, keep redirecting that seller, because that seller should not be having conversation with you. And I would be nervous Nelly if I had somebody else's seller calling me, and you know, and at some point I probably would say, you know, I am not representing you, and we can't have this discussion. You need to work through your agent. Love you, but go away.
Right.
Yeah. Because that's really an unfair thing to put you in that position of being that person in the middle. And that other agent on the other side should already be having a discussion with her seller saying, hey, any concerns you have them through me. I will reach out. That's my job. That's what I'm getting paid for. I'm here to represent your best interests. Yeah.
Right. And so I let him know right away that she had called me, because I knew this shouldn't be happening.
And what was the response that when you told that person that you were hearing from their seller?
I don't know. He didn't seem very surprised.
It sounds like he's got a rogue seller on his hands. Yeah.
You know, a lot of times for showing appointments, a lot of agents are now putting the seller's phone number in the listing, which is such a mistake. I mean, why should you want people to be calling your seller? I mean, you're giving them the phone number, you know. I mean, I just think that you have to take charge as an agent to represent the seller and make the appointments and make the
I would say when I started selling in 2009, 90% of the call to shows were the seller's phone number.
Right.
And that over time, we've really made a shift away from that because people have become very concerned about their privacy and who has the phone number and things like that. And there's been a very a shift over the last 10 years of going, hey, no, enough.
Right.
It's bad enough.
Right.
The pictures of my house are everywhere.
Yes.
You know, I don't want people reaching out to me personally about it. So there's been a real
Yes.
big shift.
And sometimes as an agent, you call the seller and they're like, who's this? You know, they ask questions that are like ridiculous. They don't even know what to say or do. I mean, they're
Yeah.
not directed in any way from the agents, so.
So that brings up something cool that's happening. I don't know whether you were on the call yesterday, the Zoom for the All Partners meeting, but did you all get the letter from the MLS telling you that showing time is coming to Tucson? Yeah, so showing time is been used for years in Phoenix. And I am part of a Facebook group that's up in Phoenix that is realtors only. And they talk about it all the time. They love it, they hate it, and everything in between. Because just like everything else, people can make appointments on showing time and then not show up. Or agents who say, make your appointment on showing time, don't respond to confirm the appointment. So you know, it's not the answer to everything from that perspective. But if you received that, you saw that there's some webinars coming up, and they're only a 30-minute webinar. I'm going to take the one on the 18th, because on the 24th, I'm coming back and doing about an hour class on just, you know, sort of etiquette, you know, around showing and things like that. So I want to incorporate that because that's starting on the 23rd, that's going to be available. And so you will have an app that you download to your phone. And if you tell people in your listing that they can make their appointments via showing time, you're going to need to be able to be responsive to that on showing time.
Yes.
But it's another way forward for us to add that. And then that also takes out the client from that picture, because they're coming directly to you through showing
I saw
time.
something on that email too. I clicked on a little video about the buyer tour where it will set up, you know, from house to house, the best route that you can go if you have a couple of houses you're showing. Sounds like it could be a good app.
There is a tool in the MLS that you can do that. It's called driving, I think, driving something, where you can put your houses in order, and it will print you out a map, and it will kind of show you the way to go. But it's not intuitive. You have to know where to find that. But yeah, it is tricky to sometimes get in certain neighborhoods. I remember showing houses up in Saddlebrook, and that's like 5,000 houses, and you go to the first one, and then how do you find the next one from there? There's like, you know, no way to figure out the directions when you're lost in a huge neighborhood like that. So thank goodness GPS came along, you know, and we could put the address in there and find our way from one to the other that way. So I can't imagine what it was like when people didn't have that and couldn't. But I used to joke with people, and I tell them that when we were in real estate school, they take you out in your car and they perfect the U-turn. They teach you how to make a U-turn, and that I aced that part of the class. So we would make lots of U-turns and get ourselves back on track. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So take the webinar if you have time. I think it's only 30 minutes long, and get that tool in your toolbox. And again, put that separation between your sellers and everybody else. Because boy, wouldn't that be nice, Robin, if she didn't know your phone number?
Yes, it was.
Right.
Yeah, maybe you just need to put her on block that call, and it doesn't even come through to you. Yeah, because I love the block feature on my phone. Yeah, every time somebody calls me to spam me with something, their number gets blocked. So yeah.
I had a similar issue years ago. We were looking at homes. This was up in Indiana, and the seller somehow got my phone number. So when we declined to buy the house, she was harassing me. You know, why don't you want to buy my house? Just calling me like 10 times a day for a week. So I'm calling her. So I just had to block her. But she was a sweet little old lady, but she just could not understand why we did not want to buy her house. And I have no idea how she got my number, obviously from her agent. But that was not a happy day. Yes.
Yeah, sometimes they can, they pick up that information. I have seen agents who copy everybody on the email, and all of a sudden everybody's got everybody's emails. Not a good thing to do. So yeah, and the reason you didn't buy that house is because we don't want to live where crazy lives. So
right.
Something in the water at your house, lady. We're not buying that house. Yeah. So Yeah, good way to keep separation. So we'll learn all about that some more and talk about what that new tool will be. Any other things that are at top of your mind or questions that you have?
There was a meeting today at 4 o'clock about DocuSign and something else. I know in New York they're having COVID and DocuSign. Do you know anything about that? I know in New York they're having a really hard time with that. They're trying to change the document a little bit. I don't know exactly what it says, but that's what
we have a training here at Keller Williams, or this is a DocuSign training that's out there?
I got a text today. Did anybody else get a text?
Anybody else?
About DocuSign.
Let me tell you what it says. It's not on the regular schedule for 1KWSA, but I got a text.
That's what I'm looking at right now, and I'm going, I don't see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not a Keller Williams training. It's maybe a DocuSign training
I'll tell you.
company.
It says important OP call today at 4 p.m. Discussion on streamlined COVID forms and DocuSign.Loo, plus how we are moving forward in phase 2. Don't miss today's call. I'm trying to think if this is in New York. Let me just say I get both.
I think you might be talking about a New York thing because
Let
they're.
me just say, because I don't think they use .Loop anymore, so.
And if it was 4 o'clock in New York, it's already come and gone.
Yeah, I thought that it was from us for some reason, but it's not on our website.
I didn't hear anything about it from us,
Okay.
and it doesn't look like anybody else has gotten a notification of that. You will find, Lois, have you used DocuSign?
I don't use it really. I do have a transaction coordinator that possibly uses it, but I'm still using .Loop, so.
Okay. Anybody else, or are you using .Loop?
I'm just using .Loop because that's what we were told to use right now. But should we be getting familiar with DocuSign and getting signed up through Command?
Well, DocuSign is a part of Command, and one of the cool things is that inside Command, when you do the DocuSign, sort of like you connect the two, if you would, or authorize it, that's where all the documents all are. You won't find the documents in the templates anymore like you do in .Loop, but they're like, has anybody here used zip forms at all? No.
I've used it a few times, but not
Yeah,
often.
it's like a whole, so in DocuSign, there's a whole library of all of your forms, from AAR, TAR, the MLS, and from KW's ABA is in there. Those forms are already in there. And what's great is that you can go in there, pick out the forms you want, drop them into DocuSign, send them off to be signed. What I think you'll find from the little bit that I've seen is DocuSign's very user-friendly. It's probably been around the longest of all the electronic signing programs. If you buy it yourself, it's about $225 a year. So it's a nice thing to have. And it's very color-coded and very easy to drop signatures. And so there's not going to be a huge learning curve is what I want to tell you on that particular piece of it. If you go in and you get your command set up and you go to make a transaction, it's going to ask you to do that part of DocuSign. I did it yesterday. They sent me an email and I had to click on the link in the email and then they knew it was me and they connected my account. So yeah, get that kind of stuff ready before we go. And you might find you really like it all. If you still want to use .Loop as you're signing, you're going to have to at some point do that as your own add-on kind of thing. So you might want to get to the place where why not use the stuff that's free or included with the price of admission? I'm all for that. Always. I'd rather you spend any additional funds you have on marketing or other things that can build your business rather than, tools for signing paperwork. I'd rather you always use what's free or included. Yeah. So not a bad learning curve.
So if we go ahead right now and go in Command and go to transactions, we can get .Loop, or not .Loop, our DocuSign account set up.
Yeah, what I did yesterday is I went in and I created a contact, which I said I created my husband as a contact. And then I went into what's called opportunities. And opportunities is where you take somebody from being a contact all the way into a transaction. And I started a transaction for him. And as soon as I did that, it wanted me to do this whole thing with DocuSign. And I went ahead and did it. And I didn't get lost in it. And I got to tell you, I haven't figured out my DVD to use my DVD player or any of that yet because I don't want to read the instructions. So if I manage to get through this and it was just a few clicks, it can't be that hard. So, yeah.
But we're not, can we use the documents in there yet? Or
Yeah.
you said that's going to be
I
in August?
I don't know that you can. That's a good question. I will check on that one for you, Teresa. But I know that you can at least, because even before you use them, I'm going to want you to do a test, and you were saying earlier that you have another email address, and that's what I was going to do. I was going to do a test, send a purchase agreement for $1 million house to my husband so that he could just have a little minor heart attack or think that we won the lottery. And then just see what that whole experience is like before I use it for the first time, just kind of run through that experience and see what that looks like. And I was able to do that. So if I was able to do that, you should be able to do that. It seems to me you should.
Well, back they had classes to attach DocuSign to the command, so they probably want you to get it set up.
Yeah. So if I was able to, I don't have any special permissions in there. I'm not an admin in there yet because Lisa's the only admin in there at this particular point. So I went in there just as an agent. So,
Okay, great.
yeah. So I would say that. So we're just about out of time, but if there's anything else that you wanted to ask about or talk about or wondering about, or, I hope you're all staying safe. Crazy times, just when we think we can't add one more thing to this whole hot mess, then the mountain catches on fire. So just stay all safe. If you have any kind of breathing issues, stay inside. Good place to be for right now. And yeah.
Have you guys found that people wear masks around you and stuff? I've been in inspections, no one's wearing masks. I mean, I think about it when I come home that I've exposed myself again, where I'm being so safe, most of the time. You never know who you're coming into contact with, from the inspector, the home inspector, the termite inspector. Nobody was wearing masks. The buyers, the sellers. So
I'm seeing that the only place I'm seeing a lot of it is when it's being absolutely
mandatory.
You can't come in unless you have it, like Costco,
Right.
My husband said he walked to Mamak Hill Tuesday night, his first time back over there walking the hill. And he said there was a good 1,000 people on that hill walking up and down. And he said maybe 10% of them had masks on. And so, so it's interesting. I think unless people, you go to the doctor's office and they make it mandatory,
Right.
Yeah.
I had my hair colored last night and
looks gorgeous.
Mandatory. Thank you. But anyway, it is mandatory. So you have to wear a mask to even enter and keep it on the whole time. Oh, and it was hard because it took a while. I'm breathing, but I did. Luckily, I had because I like to refinish furniture, and I had in my garage those special N19 or whatever you call them, and I had a few of those. So I do use those when I go to show homes, and I scare two little children, but I do have them on, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't want to terrorize your children, but I need, I feel like I should do this. So, but, and then you have some buyers that are like, hey, it's okay, we're not going to wear a mask, don't worry about it. And I'm like, as long as I stay 6 feet away, then I can take my mask.
I haven't put anybody in my car. I do suggest they take their own car just because it's very hard to social distance in your car. So
yeah, I think that's very wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've not been too comfortable with anyone in my car anyway, so this would be a good reason to say, hey, I'm sorry, I'll just meet you there or meet at the office and follow you.
Right.
Follow me, I'm sorry. Yeah, it is different, but stay safe.
But as far as exercising with a mask, it's hard to do, it's breathing. But people say if you have bad allergies, the mask is very helpful, if you're outside.
Yeah.
So it can benefit you, I guess, too.
Oh yeah, because it's keeping those from bothering you. I didn't ever even thought about that. Yeah. Yeah, it's a mixed bag what I'm seeing out there from the mask perspective. So, and I think it's become a flashpoint for some people, and just all the craziness of all of that. everybody has to do whatever they're most comfortable with and
Right.
right for them.
Yes,
we
and
are
now a lot of people are doing open houses again, you know, real live open houses, and I'm sure they have lots of strangers coming in and out without masks. So you just say we put ourselves in jeopardy by not wearing masks.
Mhm. And
We
if
have
the
to
seller
respect-
has asked for masks to be worn, then masks need to be worn.
Yes.
We need to respect this is still their home, so we need to
Right.
respect that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we just have to be respectful of both aspects because you have
Mhm.
people that think it's crazy to wear a mask and people that think it's mandatory. So you have to, be the negotiator and
right.
respect both ends of the spectrum.
Mhm. Sometimes sellers just leave the lights on so you don't have to touch the switches, which is helpful. You could just
Mhm.
walk in and just walk around, which
Mhm.
is nice.
That is nice. That's nice. They should do that all the time, regardless of COVID, that I don't have
Yeah.
to touch their switches, yeah. I would like
Or open the doors so you don't have to
Yeah.
touch the latches.
And then I don't have to worry about shutting all those lights off and remembering
Right.
which ones
Right, did I
shut off.
turn that on?
Yeah, exactly.
And I carry antiseptic or disinfectant wipes, and I just wipe everything down when everyone's done. And that way, and at least I know, because you never know if they have cameras in the house or whatever. And I just like to do that anyway, just that way. It's
That's
all
a
nice.
nice extra touch. So that's
Yeah.
very kind of you. Yeah, I think we just need to be kind. And that's a very kind move. Well, it has been a pleasure getting to know you ladies better. I hope to
Yes,
see you
you
again.
too.
Yeah, and
Get to know you more, Wendy.
yeah.
Nice.
All right, and here for you if you have other questions, just call the broker hotline. It rings to Nancy's and mine's phone at exactly the same time. So then we race to see who's going to pick it up. So you never know who you're going to get. But if you are working with a problem like with me and we've been working on it for days or something like that, it's always best to say, hey, Wendy, can I have your personal cell phone number? And that way it doesn't go through the hotline. Because Nancy and I don't like to get involved if somebody else has been working a problem with you, because then it just gets confusing. So you always can just ask, or if I pick up the phone and you've been working with Nancy, you can say that. Wendy, I've been working with Nancy on this one, and I will give you her direct line so that you can get in touch with her. Okay?
Sounds
All
great.
right.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a great afternoon, ladies.
Yeah.
You too.
You too, bye.
Bye-bye.